After our last video, we now have the hide-and-seek structure completely built. But before we proceed with programming the gameplay, there's a new idea we can use to make our code a little easier to modify as we test. We've made our structure out of a certain type of hard Minecraft block. In this case, a block of diamond. But let's say we wanted to change what the structure is made out of. Instead of using diamond blocks, we might instead want to use glass blocks, so we can see what our agent is doing inside the structure while we test our gameplay code. The way we've generated our code so far, we would have to make multiple changes. A few changes might not be such a big deal now, but for larger projects, that might mean having to go through a lot of code. Not to mention, changing the blocks back to diamond when we are ready to play will also require multiple changes. Rather than needing to change all of these values each time we want to alter our code, let's use a constant. A constant is a type of variable whose value we decide before running our code, and that value never changes during the course of running our code. So what is a variable? A variable is a container for a piece of information. The piece of information a variable holds is called a value. Let's create a variable. To create a variable, we go to the Variables category and click the Make a Variable button. When we create a variable, we have to give it a name. We can give our variable any name we want, but to make our code easy to understand, there are a couple of things to consider. The first consideration is the naming convention. Let's use a naming convention known as constant case, which uses all capital letters and has underscores to separate words. By having our variable name in constant case, it will be obvious to us that this variable is actually a constant and should never be changed to another value while the program is running. Because the constant we are creating will represent the hard block that the structure is made out of, hard block would be a very good name. Let's type it out in constant case with capital letters and underscores. We can see now that we have a variable in our variables folder called hard block. We should make another constant for our weaker block, which is a wool block right now. What would be a good name for this new constant? Weak block is a perfectly good name, since the block at the end of the arm is meant to be mined quickly by the player. Let's open our variables folder again and click Make a Variable. Using constant case, let's name this one weak block. We now have two variables in our variables folder that can be used as constants. In our next video, we will implement these constants and see how it makes changing our code easier.